Sorry, Willa. My name is Kim Carter Martinez, and I am an activist and union organizer, and this is my sidekick, Willow. I remember growing up and my parents were active in the union, particularly my dad. He was a paper worker and then became the president of his union. And I remember going to union meetings with him and going to picket lines with him and stopping for strikes with him and attending rallies. He instilled a lot of values in us. Like probably by the time I was 5 years old, I knew if you crossed a picket line, like the clouds would part and like God's hand would come down and like snatch you up or something. I learned the power of coalitions when I lived in Seattle. And I was a delegate to the King County Labor Council, and the King County Labor Council had a committee that helped plan the World Trade Organization protests in 1999. I remember the morning of November 30th, that was the first day of the protests, and I walked into, what was it called? I think it was called Key Arena. I walked into Key Arena and I looked around and there must have been like 500,000 people in there. And I'd never seen that many people in my entire life. And as I looked around, Seattle is not a very diverse city, but I saw like Black people, white people, Latino people, Indigenous people, Asian people, like all different kinds of people, old people, young people. And a sign that stood out to me that I saw in the crowd said Teamsters and Turtles United. And I thought that was so effing cool that like that was a bridge that probably a year earlier was fighting each other on something, and we were together there to fight against that common interest. And I think when you're able to build a broad-based coalition of people from various different sectors with the same interests, I think you can build more power and you have more leverage in the fight. If it had just been the Seattle Labor Movement, there would have been 1,000 people out there, 2,000 people, but it was like people from around the world, and so there were 1 million people out there. So I think that was just the start of like, hey, like kind of unholy alliances can get together and do some good.
Like, what do you think your dad would think of the WTO protest?
I think he would have loved it. I think he would have been super excited to see 1 million people coming together. He was a trendsetter in his union, being the first Black man to work for them, and I think he would have seen that that was a historical event as well, and how it would shape a lot of people's lives. And I think he would have loved it, and I think he would have said, how do we keep this going?